Peggy. I think she's
Okay.
ready.
Okay. The U.S. Forum Steering Committee is glad you were able to attend today's workshop on engaging your legislators. I am Peggy Monroe. I am the Southeastern representative to the Steering Committee. We have planned two different types of workshops for the biennium, those that convey information on issues and those that help build our skills as advocacy. Today's session is one of the latter. Before we begin, will you please mute yourself during the presentation? Thank you. Our presenter today is Pat Bennett-Forman, Chair of the Steering Committee. Pat is no stranger to skill building for advocacy. She is a trainer for effective communication to legislators through the lead of Women Voters, Washington Speak Up School, and has provided a number of workshops on this topic at DKG conferences, both at the state and international level. Pat was a lead from her state for the mental health support for the education resolution passed by the U.S. Forum 2022 in New Orleans. Pat hopes more DKG members will become active in advocacy and speaking up for educators, and that DKG will attract more young members because of the advocacy work it does on their behalf. Pat has served DKG as state editor, first vice president, state president, and U.S. Forum representative, as well as on membership and educational policy committees in her state. She served on the International Communications and Marketing Committee in the 2022-2024 biennium and was a member of the 2012 DKG Leadership Management Seminar. Pat is a retired special education and Title I educator with classroom specialist and administrative experience. She has also taught at the university level. In her spare time, she volunteers with a local Kiwanis Club and works to provide food to students in need during school breaks. Today, Pat will discuss with us strategies that make your advocacy, your work with legislators and other decision makers easier. There will be opportunity for comments and questions during the presentation and a Q&A at the end. And of course, you can put items in the chat. With that, I will turn it over to Pat.
Thank you. And I just have to get this small enough so I can get the share on. So thank you, Peggy, for that introduction. I've seen, just kind of flipping through who's attending, that I have some experienced folks here today and some friends and also some folks whose names I don't recognize. So maybe some folks who are newbies to advocacy. I've been deeply interested in standing up for our teachers with legislators for many years, but for a long time, I really didn't know how to go about doing that. About 10 years ago, I met Allison McCaffrey with the Washington State League of Women Voters, who was talking about a speak up school to teach folks how to testify before the state redistricting commission. And I thought, great, here's my chance to get some training. Well, as it turned out, those of us who expressed interest in the school actually became the curriculum writers for the project. So I researched and studied and then wrote the curriculum piece that that I presented to our state and then across the country with the League of Women Voters. And that formed the basis for what I'm going to be talking about today. So why shouldn't it be easy for a bunch of intelligent, well-educated teachers to do this? We speak in front of people all the time, although admittedly some of them are a little shorter than we are. Interestingly, many teachers are more than reluctant. They're quite nervous about speaking to adults, reluctant to give workshops, reluctant to seek offices, reluctant to advocate. In fact, they'd rather jump in a pit of alligators than to do that advocacy work. And then there's the very real fact that many of us are just simply exhausted. Others don't mind getting up in front of adults, even those with power, but they don't really know how to go about it. And that was me a few years ago. Still others, particularly in this day and age, wonder if it even matters. They feel not afraid, not ignorant, but just kind of hopeless. So I hope by the end of today's session, we'll have addressed some of these issues. So first, does it matter? Yes. Yes, let me say that again. Yes, hearing from you really matters. In a detailed study in which legislative aides, and those are the people who actually run the offices for the congressional representatives and senators, were surveyed, and they identified the most influential forms of advocacy for their bosses. That is, what changed their bosses' minds the most. And what did they tell us? Well, let's look at this chart. And you'll see that 53% of the respondents indicated that in-person visits to their legislators was the most important influencer in changing that legislator's decision or in confirming where they wanted to go. And another 41% found that to be of some value. Individual emails, 32% found that to be very, very important to their legislators. 62% found that to be somewhat important. And I want you to compare that down here to the visits from lobbyists. And only 8% of those felt that that was made a lot of difference to legislators. And form emails, those kinds of things we get all the time. Sign this survey, sign this petition. That's only about 3% effective. So when we look at it, those of us with in-person visits and individual emails have the highest degree of chance of being effective. So you bet you matter. In fact, you have a superpower. You have a superpower if you use it. If you speak out, if you do your homework, and if you use effective communication strategies. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about today is that the best advocacy is based on the foundation of creating a relationship with your legislator. That's why this workshop was entitled Engaging Your Legislators, not just writing them or talking at them, but engaging them, because engagement implies a give and take, kind of a true relationship. So the first thing we need to know then is, who are our legislators? What's their voting record? Um, and that's important because it'll determine how you address that person on your issue. What are their priorities and passions? And does your issue fit into that passion in any way? What committees do they serve on? And does your issue fit into those committees? Get to know their staffers. Those are the people that really wield a lot of the power anyway. That can be a really good in. If you know the staffers very, very, very well, it's a good in to the legislator themselves. Then knowing their seniority and their party affiliation can help too, so that you can ask in a manner that's going to appeal to your legislator. And then part of the relationship is building it so that you're making frequent contacts, not always just asking people for things, but also giving them thanks and other forms of appreciation. And even if you disagree with your legislator, always be polite. It'll make them much more amenable to having you talk to them another time. And finally, recognize that they don't know everything. Offer to help, to be a resource, to give testimony sometime, if if you're comfortable doing that kind of thing. Then, of course, be polite and show appreciation. The secondly, then, to be effective in your advocacy, you need to know your issue. What are the facts? What are the talking points, the pros and cons? What's your position on this issue? And why does it matter to you? kind of have to make it that issue your passion. And as with any passion, you're going to know a lot about it. And that's very important to be effective with your legislators. The third principle of advocacy is to use research-based effective communication strategies, to use the components of effective testimony and to deliver when you advocate. And then this is what we're going to be talking about for the rest of our session today. And I'll be talking about testimony, but when I'm doing that, I'm using it very loosely to include written comments, emails, in-person meetings, and then the more formal testifying that you might do before a school board or your county commissioners or a state legislative committee. And I'll be talking a lot about legislators, but please be aware that I'm talking about really any person or group that you want to advocate to, any of your elected officials and decision makers. So, from the literature about effective testimony, we know that there are certain building blocks that make testimony effective. First, effective testimony establishes your credentials, who you are. Secondly, it clearly identifies the topic and purpose or the critical point of your statement or of your visit. Third, the best testimony tells a story that engages your audience, or in this case, your legislator or whatever the decision maker is you're discussing things with. Fourth, it provides evidence, facts to support the position that are succinctly provided. And lastly, effective testimony closes with a specific ask. What is it you want the decision maker to do? So this little graphic is a handy way for us to remember those essential elements. So first, what are the credentials that you use? Introduce yourself. Secondly, what's the critical point or the issue you're addressing? The "I'm here to talk to you about" statement. Third, why do you care about this? What's your story? What makes this meaningful to you? Fourth, what are the facts and supporting positions that you have? And what might be consequences that if your position is not adopted or what would happen if it was? And then finally, the ask. What specifically do you want them to do? And if we use those five components in our testimony, then we'll have clear, effective testimony. So let's look at that a little more carefully. In establishing our credentials, it doesn't mean that you have to be, a recognized expert. You don't have to be an elected official. You don't have to be a lobbyist. It simply means that you let the person you're talking to or writing to know who you are, and especially that you're a constituent. In fact, oftentimes you won't get to send an email to a legislator unless you are one of their constituents. It doesn't necessarily mean a voter, but a constituent. That's really, really an important piece. So you give your name, where do you live, that you are a constituent. And when you leave, you're going to give them a piece of paper that includes your contact information, your email, your telephone, and your address. And then if you represent more than just yourself, then you should identify that group and a little bit about them. But just make sure that, in fact, you're authorized to represent that group. So as soon as you've introduced yourself, you're going to tell the legislator why you're speaking to them. What is your issue or concern? If you wanted them to remember one thing from your presentation, what is that one thing? It's kind of the big picture overall statement or the "I'm here to discuss" statement. One of the most effective means of making sure that you're remembered and that your message is heard is to tell a personal story about why this issue is important to you. Telling a story that about something that personally impacts you creates empathy from your listeners, and that's something that you really need. Um, your story can help to build the relationship with your elected official. Remember that people who are in a relationship care about each other, and you want that elected official to care about you and your position. A personal story also helps to make your points memorable. Um, oh, yeah, that's the lady who said or told us about XYZ. Also, a personal story not only illustrates your point, but it also adds validity, justification to your presence. In a way, your story says, I have a right to be here talking to you about this issue. Makes it really, really important. So, oops, sorry, I just went way, way forward. Um, I'll give you an example. I knew a person who talked with her legislator about the fact that she was having to use her grocery money to buy her diabetes medication, and she was asking for cost of living increases for educators. Our friend Peggy here has talked to her representatives in Congress about a book her husband is writing about Vietnam and PTSD. So it's really makes that personal. People are going to remember what it is you're there to talk to them about. But it's not enough to identify your issue and tell a story. Good testimony also gives the reader or listener some critical facts and details to support the position. After all, the decision maker who doesn't live your story has got to be able to justify their position with the other legislators and try and convince them to vote the same way. So they need facts that are going to support their decisions. Ideally, it's research based. Um, Put in a few statistics to support your position because they'll turn around and use those statistics. And if you know, list some of the benefits of this is what's going to happen if this legislation passes, or this is what's going to happen if it doesn't. And I know that you ladies who are on board here who have worked in California and Alaska and a number of other states on getting the GPO repealed were able to talk about consequences of their inaction. That was an important thing. So after you've done that, you got to close it out with specifying the ask. Tell the decision maker exactly what you want them to do, to consider, to change, how you want them to vote. Keep it short and simple. You want them to remember the ask. So those legislative aides that I was telling you about in that survey have said that this is the most common error made, that people come in to chat with them about some issue, but they don't tell them what they want done about it. So remember to give your ask. And then also don't forget to leave them with a copy of your ask. If it's in person, just leave the paper with them. If it's virtual, then send it through email to them so that they get it. And then, of course, we're going to thank them for their time and acknowledge the difficult tasks that they have ahead of them in all the various legislative decisions that they have to make. So, um, I'd like you now to just take a minute. If you have a piece of paper and can trace around your hand, do that, or at least number 1 through 5 on a piece of paper. And tell me, what are those 5 critical elements of effective testimony? Just take a minute or two to write that down. Okay, can I ask somebody to tell me what number one is? Are you going to have to you're going to have to unmute in order to do that. So, Fran, I saw your hand first. What's number one?
One was establish who you are.
Right. Give your credentials. How about number two? Somebody else going to give me that one?
Um, your issue, your critical issue. Tell about your issue. Your,
Yeah, I'm
your
here to
critical
talk to you
point.
about. I'm here to talk to you about whatever it is, whatever that issue is. What's number three? Kathy.
Why it matters.
Tell your story.
Yeah, tell your story. Tell why it matters to you. What's the big deal about this? This is what makes a difference for this. Number four?
Provide evidence and statistics.
Yeah, provide some facts. Give them something to hang on this issue onto. And last, really important,
Your ask.
Lynn, I knew you were about to say that, right? Thank you. Your ask. And if you include these pieces in your testimony, you will find that you are much more successful. Can you folks still see that? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So, okay, you know what parts need to go in your testimony, whether it's in person or written, but what exactly do you say, and how do you go about putting that information together to say it the right way? So, we have developed some guidelines, some templates that you can use that'll make this really easy for you. So to create your testimony, you're going to use your story, you're going to use that evidence, and you're going to write a paragraph summary. You're going to do this before you send it in, before you go visit your legislator. You want to use clear, simple language, short sentences, and ideally you're going to arrange them in the order of those five essentials. This is who I am. This is what I want to talk to you about. Here's my story. Here are some facts. Here's what I want you to do about it. And limit yourself to one page. Because if you are writing something, you're not going to read more than one page. And if you're in person, you're not going to have time to talk about more than one page. So keep it short. And I suggest you use these templates to kind of guide your writing process. So one of the templates that we have is called the Quick and Easy Testimony Fill-In. This is especially great if you're not very experienced at this. It lays it out in paragraph form. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. My name is. I vote in such and such a district in such and such a city. I would like to draw your attention to the issue of. This is important to me because, and here's my story, and here are some facts or evidence to support my position. The consequences of not fixing this problem include, I ask you to. And then thank you. It has all of the elements that we've just talked about, all in one quick and easy form. Where can you find this? We have now put the handy guide, this template, and some others that you're going to see today in the resource section of the US Forum website. That's dkgusforum.org resources section. You can click on the document title and get a full copy of the form to download and use in your preparation work before writing your email or visiting your decision maker. And I strongly encourage you to do this. It's just an easy way to prepare. So what I'd like to do now is to have us consider an issue that DKG members have indicated that they're passionate about. So when we did our survey recently, the number one issue across the country from our DKG members was the issue of educator and mental health support. So I'm going to show you a slide, and what I'd like you to do with that slide is to choose 3 of the facts that you're going to use for your mock presentation to a legislator. And I'd like you to think of a personal story or a story about somebody that you know who's been impacted by a mental health issue and unable to get support at school. And I want you to kind of jot those things down as if we were filling out the quick and easy form. You're going to be looking at the testimony is important to me story and the facts and evidence. So I'd like you to just take a few minutes to do that. You don't have to write the whole thing down, but you know, just enough to so that you would know which fact you're going to be including on your quick and easy. And then think about your story. And I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes to do that. By the way, I didn't mention, but if you have any questions as we're moving along, feel free to put them in the chat. And those of you who are experienced at this testifying, if you want to put comments in the chat, I'd be glad to share those with folks too. Thank you. So is there someone, if you raise your hand, is there somebody who'd like to share the story and the 3 facts that they have jotted down? Don't be shy. I need you to raise a hand though, because I can't see all of you. Is it easier if we start with the facts? Nancy Shang raised her hand. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy, which 3 facts did you pick out?
Oh, I wanted to talk about my story.
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, related to the mental health, I would, in fact, I've already done this to a couple of legislators when we were in Washington, D.C. last time at NLS, about mental health support for teachers. I'm retired now, but during my career, I had 2 students commit suicide. And it was hard to deal with that personally. And I don't really recall any support from the administration or the school. And that was, in one case, the mother came back to the school and actually blamed the teachers for her son's act of suicide. That was truly hard to take. So that would be my story to get through to the legislator that these mental health supports for teachers are really important, and that our job is a hard one.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Anybody want to talk about the 3 facts that they picked out? Or 3 of you talk about 1 fact? What's 1 fact you noticed? Sharon.
Well,
Sharon,
I focused on the last fact that teachers reporting they are likely to leave their jobs has risen since pre-pandemic levels to 16% to over 25%, with 57% of them seriously worried about burnout. And that resonated with me because I am this is 23 years for me in education. I work in a urban school district in Washington, D.C. area. And last year I experienced at least 3 teachers who didn't, inform anyone. They did not wait until the end of the year or the end of their contract. They simply picked up their purse and walked out of the teaching profession. And so I think that's concerning and very much something that is important for us to focus on and look at what's happening there.
Yeah.
How can we keep our teachers in the
Thank
class?
you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Sharon. Dory Powell, you have another one that struck you as important.
Well, related to that one, I would have put points along with that one about the burnout. I would have put the first point about job-related stress being higher than other professions, and also higher incidence of clinical depression compared and anxiety disorder. All of those resonate with me as part of the problem with teacher shortage, not just from burnout, but early career educators who abandon the profession after just a couple of years, maybe even the first year knowing that it's not something they can handle. And I think all three of those statements of fact are related to the teacher shortage that we're facing.
Great. Thank you, Dory.
Not everywhere is there a shortage. I know that that is often cited, but it's certainly pervasive.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Dory. Kathleen.
Yes,
Kathleen.
that's Kathleen is correct. Yes, I chose the fact that secondary or compassion trauma has quadrupled since the pandemic. And that has led to many of the issues that have been reported in the other facts, teachers leaving the classroom, or teachers having massive burnout and shortening what was intended to be long careers.
Yeah. Thank you, Kathleen. I noticed that in particular when we were doing this original research because a lot of individuals don't understand why are teachers feeling this and not understanding that they are experiencing secondary trauma dealing with the students who have trauma. So it's really important. So you see how easy it would be to take those comments and fill out that form on the quick and easy to put those three facts down that you've listed and even though position number one went up over here, and then tell that little story. It would be easy to fill that form out. So thank you for sharing on that. So we have another template that would be helpful. It is the template for written legislative contacts. This template's a little more formal, a document for submitting material, and it contains the complete script of what you would want to say. So sometimes when we're on phone conferences or if you're doing a virtual contact with your legislator, you can get cut off. Because I'll just give you an example. I was meeting with a legislator one time. He had to get up and leave almost immediately after we'd finished the hi, how are you doing? How are things back home? Kinds of, visiting. He almost immediately had to get up and leave to go to a vote. So I didn't get to really talk to him about my stuff. And so it was important that we have a document that we were going to leave. And this form allows you to put the same kinds of things in that we have talked about, all of the who you are, the issue statement, your story, why this is important to you, the supporting facts, the ask, and so on. And I wanted to point out that we got, or at least I got this. I think there are similar ones other places, but I got this from the Washington State School Retirees Association, and they found it to be very effective in their advocacy work. They put the facts in a red box, and that made it very easy for the person getting the material to zero in on those talking points. So here you see those points, just those same points that we've been talking about just a couple minutes ago. And then they also numbered their why this is important to them piece. They numbered it so that it was, again, very easy for somebody to zero in on that template. And I have observed of legislators circle things on this form when I've presented it to them. It really does help them to keep track of what you're talking about and to remember it when you're gone. So those are samples of some forms. There are others that are on the DKG US Forum website. So those forms help to make it easier, but where do you find the information? Where do you get those facts? How do you figure out what it is you need to be saying about whatever your issue is? And there are a number of choices for us. One is to go directly into whatever bill you're advocating for or against and use the language from the bill. Use some key words that are in the bill. Maybe looking at the congressional record and seeing some speeches that have been made about the bill. That can help to give you some information. So, yeah, I agree with Senator so-and-so who said this. And you can put that kind of information in. Another source is your colleagues, your community. Going to them and looking at surveys, talking to your friends and neighbors about stories they might have, or your fellow teachers, looking at previous testimony that might have gone out on your topic. Those are ways for you to gather information to put into your facts and evidence sections. Printed material, of course, has a vast array of things. You can get a local take on issues, which is really important because especially for your state folks and for your House of Representatives, they like the local stuff. Well, how is this impacting my district? And so you can give them that kind of information. You can look at letters to the editor and various news articles. Use the forum. We have legislative updates that are coming out in the Connections newsletter and also on our new website. There are going to be position papers and blogs on the website that'll have some information for you. And then at our general meetings, like coming up in New Orleans, we will be discussing some of those issues, and you can jot down notes about the important talking points that are mentioned and that you might want to use. And then I'll call out, there are several states that have good websites. And I'm looking at Kathleen, and I know that somewhere on here I saw Kathy as well. California has a wonderful website for looking at positions and position statements. And then there are other organizations. We don't have any paid lobbyists in our organization, but some of the organizations do. So look at groups that have similar missions like the AAUW or the League of Women Voters, and maybe you'll find some statements and some facts that will help you as you're preparing your material. Looking at Retired Teachers Association or those various associations that work with special needs students, NEA, AFT, professional journals. Do a little Googling and you'll find a ton of facts that can support whatever position and issue you're dealing with. So, some suggestions if you're new at this. Remember that the best way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So I encourage you to start small and to go slow. Just go a little bit beyond your comfort level. If you're okay with writing a postcard right now, go beyond just a little bit and see if you'd be all right with writing an email. And you don't have to do this alone. Try and find a friend or somebody else from your DKG chapter who would go with you to a legislator's office. And along that line, it's simpler, a little less intimidating sometimes to go to the local office of your congressional representatives and meet with them there during their recesses. And just a quick review, people who have experience in giving and writing testimony recommend the following. Keep your written testimony brief and to the point. Include something that personalizes the issue to you. And don't forget, Close with a specific ask. And be sure to leave a copy or mail it or email. Email probably better than mail if you're going to Congress. A copy of whatever you've written to that decision maker so that they have it on hand. Now, finally, a word about some do's and don'ts. In your written testimony, the document should be brief and easy to read. So use bullets rather than paragraph forms. Number things, use keywords and highlight them. Put a few facts in there. Know those facts that you found most important and be sure to include those in so that your legislators have some justification for taking your position and making it their own. And do thank them. That's a tough job, thank God. And so we need to let them know that we appreciate their paying attention to what we have to say. Please do not be accusatory. Don't make any partisan kinds of statements. It just irritates people and turns them off. And you don't want to do that. And then don't go over your space or time limit. I talked about a one-page letter. Don't make it any longer than that. And if you set up an appointment, they're usually maybe 15 minutes, if you're lucky. Try not to go over that limit because they're very busy people, and you don't want them squirming around and looking at their watches and not paying attention to what you have to say. So try to attend to that. So thanks for your attention and your participation. I hope that I've made you a little bit more comfortable with those tasks that are coming ahead. Your next step is to take that template, write it out, get it ready, and then either submit it in writing if you're going to do an email or turn it into a script. And I say turn it into a script because you don't want to just take your paper and be reading word for word. That loses people's attention quickly. And scripts are a little more informal than your written part. So turn it into a script. Highlight those pieces that you really want to say. And in fact, be prepared if you only get 1 minute or 2 minutes of that legislator's time. Well, what are you going to say? And then go ahead and make your appointment. And before you keep that appointment, practice your presentation. Practice it, practice it, practice it. And then when you get there, deliver it. You'll be in great shape. So I'd like to open it up to you if there are questions, comments. Does this help? Let me see what I can do here.
I want to thank you very much, Pat. And again, thank you for your compliments about California's website. If you not look at our website, you can go to DKG California, and it's Educational Law and Policy. We do have an event coming up, our legislative study session, which will be the 17th to the 19th of June. We invite our legislative leaders, our education committee chairs, our state superintendent of public instruction, someone from the governor's office, from our credentialing commission, et cetera. And it's a chance. Yes, we'd like to go back to the Capitol, which is behind my head. That's the California State Capitol. It's under major construction right now. One whole wing is missing, but we would like to go back in person soon. But these virtual study sessions at least allow us to have the face-to-face contact with those policy makers, and it's listed as an events on our main web page. So again, I know Pat's going to try to come, and if some of the rest of you are really interested, you can check that out. But it really makes a difference. And although I know DKG not all states were affected by the repeal of the WEP GPO, it was extremely important to our California educators. And so I just had a chance to meet with Garrett Graves, who was one of the co-authors last weekend. And it's important that we remind people and thank them when they do things for us that we really asked for. So.
Thank you for the compliments that are in the chat, folks. I'm glad to see that you're getting out there and giving it a whirl. And it's a little nerve-wracking at first, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And playing off of what Kathy just talked about, we will be doing at the international conference in New Orleans. The forum will be putting on a workshop about how to host your own state legislative action day, that, like Kathy was just talking about. So we'll have a panel with folks from all over the country talking about that interesting piece. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I want to share one more time because I have
You have
one more
something.
thing. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Lynn Schmidt. I was just looking up the information on my senators. We're going to present something like you did, Pat, um, at our state convention and encourage advocacy. I was just looking up my senators, and my two senators in Pennsylvania don't have emails listed. Is there a Pat email that you can send to senators and they route it, or what happens there?
One of the things that I would suggest you look at,
I was at I was at senate.gov, ussenate.gov. And
yeah,
did see
in,
addresses and phone numbers, but no email.
on the yeah, Lynn, on the U.S. Forum, in the U.S. Forum website,
Uh-huh.
under resources, up there at the top, you'll see one that says state by state
Yes.
contact.
Mm-hmm.
Click in there and see if you don't find Pennsylvania. Um, and and get a little help with that. Beyond that, your senators should have, I won't guarantee this, but they should have um, their own websites.
Okay.
And 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 if they have their own websites, they should have their email addresses
Okay.
right.
I just need to dig a little deeper.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't know Pennsylvania particularly. So other than last term, we were having some nice conversations with your senator who's no longer there. He retired. So, darn.
Casey, Bob
Yeah,
Casey.
yeah, Bob
Senator
Casey.
Casey. He's a wonderful man.
He
Mm.
was he was doing some nice things and then he retired. Darn. I want to share just one last. Hello, are you going to let me share? Okay, it's not letting me share right now. Hang on. All right, I've got to go to full screen so that I can see the share option. There we go. I just wanted to share this one last slide with you before actually, there were two last slides. One, I hope that I've given you some tools to help conquer any reluctance that you might have had about being an advocate, whether with an elected official in Congress or your state legislator or your county, your town, your school board. Take a friend and to help you get out of the alligator pit and into the office of that elected official. And speaking to my state at our recent convention, one of the things that I was talking about is the fact that um, community, especially about our DKG community, helps to take us out of exhaustion and into action. And when we take action, it makes us hopeful. So keep that in mind, and then hopefully using the templates will make your presentation easier. And and if you don't want to do an in-person discussion, go ahead and email it. But I want you to remember that the power of in-person meetings to build your influence, to develop relationships, and to exercise your superpower as a constituent. Remember that your opinions do matter. And related to that, Two events are coming up, and I'd like to invite you to learn more, practice your skills, and most importantly, to add to the forum conversations that's going to be going on about these issues. We need to hear from you. We need to have your talking points come up as part of our discussion. And we'll be doing this two different ways coming up. First, at the general session on August 2nd in New Orleans, we will be spending part of our time in groups talking about issues, the issues that you've identified as most important to you, and trying to come up with some talking points and position statements that we might want to make. We will also be looking at developing a consensus building process and a resolution adoption process so that DKG US Forum, not just states, not just chapters, not just individuals, can actually have a voice for educators. And then secondly, put it on your calendars, March 8th to the 11th, 2026, we will be having our next National Legislative Seminar. Will be hosted by the Embassy Suites in Old Town Alexandria, just a short ride from Reagan International Airport on the metro, and then having some very powerful events there. So I invite you to consider both of those events. Well, with that, thank you very much. I'm going to stop my share and stick around if folks have anything they want to say.
Do you just want us to jump in, Pat?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, thank you. That was an excellent presentation, and I really appreciate it. But the other thing I wanted to add maybe is that when you're writing, say, an email to your legislator or planning to make a presentation with an ask, it's a good idea to send it to your local papers as well. I learned at one of the national legislative seminars that they do have people track that for them, and when they see an opinion on a certain issue that's coming up maybe at least 10 times, they are going to pay more attention to that issue. So that's a good practice also. I always figure if I'm going to write a letter to either my legislator or to a newspaper, I might as well send it to everybody. So that's just my little 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Kathleen, you asked a question about since it was recorded, can that be used and to be presented at chapter meetings? And the answer is yes. One of the reasons why we are recording this information and also encouraging, we had 104 people registered, but only 36 who were actually able to attend this evening. But one of the reasons why we do that is anybody who's registered is going to get these skill building recordings so that you can use them yourself, and then also everything that's in that resources section of the DKG US Forum resources piece on the website. Those are also, download those, you can use those. The only thing we'd ask is that you say, I got this from the US Forum website, or I got this from, this is something that they use in California, or this is something they use in Florida or wherever, so that people are given credit. But yeah, feel free to do that. The more we can spread the word about how to do this and make it easier for people, the more successful we will be. Any other comments or questions? What are the dates again for the US Forum? As the US National Legislative Seminar in 2026 is March 8th through the 11th. And you'll start seeing lots of publicity about that.
I'd like to say something about the seminar. I went last March. It was great. It was the first time I went. And I'm on Kathy Kinley's committee for California on education and legislation. And she's been an amazing influence she's just, I'm just amazed at how she knows so much. And I don't think she ever sleeps, but she has been a great mentor. And when we went there to Washington, it was really exciting to me. I loved every minute of it, especially getting to meet with the representatives and the senators from California where we live. I was also on one of the presentations, and I would absolutely encourage everyone to attend. It was really great.
Thank you, Sheila. Good comments. I'm just watching folks' hands or reading your comments in the chat. I think a lot of people find the National Legislative Seminar to be kind of life-changing. It's, you're walking down the hall and there goes by so-and-so. Oh, yeah, I see that person on television all the time. Here's this person. So that's exciting, number one. But number two, then you're in there being real. You're actually providing real input to your particular representatives, and that instills a sense of power which you ought to have. Actually, you ought to have that sense of power. So I definitely encourage people to do that. And I see several folks here who've been, so I know that you've shared that. All righty. Well, folks, I think we have used our hour up. I want to thank you again for coming and participating with us. Hope to see a number of you in New Orleans. The U.S. Forum Connection newsletter will be out this week, maybe tonight if I'm lucky. And it will have a number of articles you might want to take a look at. Again, encourage you to look at the website. And stay tuned because there will be more skill building sessions and there'll be more issue building or issue informative sessions that we'll be offering. Thanks again, ladies.